So, is it morning? Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll first give a content warning. If at any time anything that I'm talking about becomes triggering, you're more than welcome to walk out, okay? I don't have any adults, any kids in here yet. Okay, but that's fine. So, give you a little bit of background about myself. I'm getting over a horrible cold last week, so excuse my voice. I'm Dr. Teresa Merriweather. My background, I hold a bachelor's in sociology, minor in criminology, master's in the administration of justice and security. Have you guys heard of a CSI crime scene investigator? Also hold crime scene technician certification, an honorary doctorate degree as well. I'm from Ohio, all right? And so in Ohio, I'm on the Ohio Attorney General's Human Trafficking's Legal and Legislative Subcommittee, okay? So I help bring forth the laws with regards to human trafficking for the state of Ohio. In the United States, the United States federal government has the Health and Human Services Department, okay? The Health and Human Services Department, the feds, they give federal dollars to each state, okay? First they give it to SAMHSA, then they give it to each state for the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, okay? So in order for those funds to get from SAMHSA to each state has to have what's called a planning council that oversees, monitors, and evaluates the funding that's brought to these different Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. So I'm one of the executive officers for the State of Ohio Department of Mental Health and Human Services overseeing those federal funds, okay? For organizations that's receiving, the funds to help service those affected by mental illness with or without substance abuse issues. Another thing with me, I am co-author of Rethinking, Primary Prevention of Child Trafficking. I'm published in the American Journal of Orthopsychiatry. I'm one of the leading human trafficking experts of this country. Besides all the acclimates, and I also lead rescue operations, I have an organization in Monrovia, Liberia, known as Hand in Hand International. So I lead rescue operations there, rescuing victims from human trafficking, and my staff there. Besides all that, acclimates, I don't really care about. I'm a survivor of human trafficking. It happened to me. And so, this is an issue that people think is only happening overseas, and it's happening right here in the United States. With my training, I like to engage, okay? So don't be afraid to answer any of my questions. So I'm gonna ask you first thing, is human trafficking a pandemic or an epidemic? Anybody? Everybody who thinks it's an epidemic, raise your hand. Epidemic? Okay. People who think it's pandemic, raise your hand. It's a pandemic. It's affecting communities and individuals all over the world. Remember, it's like COVID, no specific victim, all right? With human trafficking, people think it only happens to children and youth. No, I'm an adult survivor of human trafficking. I was 31 years old when it happened to me. My trafficker was a pastor, and I'll get into talking more about that when I do my keynote after you guys leave out of here. So, I was 31 years old when it happened to me. The last human trafficking sting operation that I assisted with, I had just got done finishing training a public health care organization or agency, okay? And when I finished training that public health care agency, they called me a couple days later and like, Merriweather, we have this case where we're not sure. We think that maybe this victim's coming here that's a victim of human trafficking. So they briefed me more on the case and telling me that the woman was 62 years old. And she contracted syphilis. So think about 62 years old contracting a gynecological STD like that. And so later on, I played the role of the new secretary. They had everything, they brought her in, because with syphilis, you have to first get treated with medication, and you gotta come back a couple days later to have the blood withdrawal to see if the medication actually worked. Brought her in, and a victim of human trafficking. But with that whole sting operation, the oldest was, I believe, 73 years old, caught up in that. Foreign, having to work in the massage parlors, right? So you're doing the sex work and the labor and stuff. So human trafficking does not just happen to children and youth. It's adult and also the elderly. Trafficking victims are in plain sight, but you gotta know what you're looking for. And the problem is a lot of people don't know what they're looking for, and a lot of people don't care until it happens to one of their family members or somebody that they love. Then all of a sudden you care. Which state do you think in the United States, going from 1 to 6, do you think is the highest with human trafficking? Number 1. This beautiful lady in the blue. Give me a state. California, highest ranking state with human trafficking. Not only because, but some of the reason is because right next door to California is Mexico. come in illegal, undocumented. Traffickers prey on them. Then the second highest ranking state we look at is Texas. Same formula, different state, right? And so it's a big state, they do everything big, high population of people, right next door to Mexico. Third highest ranking state we look at is Florida. Look at all that water, look how fast you get to the Bahamas and Dominican Republic and Haiti, Cuba and stuff. Then this next state, it usually sometimes teeter-tots with, you hear it's fourth, fifth, or sixth in the nation, and teeter-tots with New York and Michigan. It's Ohio. And one thing that I talk about with Ohio is we're so high with human trafficking because because we have a lot of interstates in the turnpike system, right? And where you see that, you see a lot of truck stops. At those truck stops are the said prostitutes. Those said prostitutes, a lot of times, are not out there committing those acts because they want to. It's because they have to. They have a trafficker behind them forcing them to do it. Also, Ohio is big with human trafficking because it's a source state. S-O-U-R-C-E, source state. And with being a source state, it's used for recruitment of victims of human trafficking, transit, they use our highway system, right, in and out, get victims in and out, cross state, different state lines, used for transiting, and we're used as a final destination for victims of human trafficking. With Ohio, just like with a lot of these states, the problem is, another reason you're so high with human trafficking, and we have a lot of human trafficking going on, is because lack of awareness and education. Traffickers are like cockroaches. They scum, aren't they? When do cockroaches come out? At nighttime in the darkness, right? But when you turn that light on, what happens? Scatter, we get some movement, right? So they enjoying it. These cockroaches, traffickers enjoying it because we're in darkness, y'all. Lack of awareness and education. And then once we turn that light on, here I am, here's awareness, we get some movement. Whenever I see a lot of agricultural farmland, I also think of with labor trafficking, okay? And that leads me into people talking about just sex trafficking. When you think of human trafficking is at the top, right? Underneath the trafficking is different typologies with regards to human trafficking. There are different typologies. You look at sex trafficking. If you ask me, Teresa, are you a victim of human trafficking? Nope, I'm a survivor of human trafficking. And I'm really not even a survivor anymore, I'm a survivor leader or survivor, all right? Another thing, I was involved in the sex trade, so my typology was sex trafficking. You have labor trafficking, domestic servitude. You hear about the organ harvesting. We see that a lot overseas in the black market, all right? We look at sextortion. It's running hand in hand with regards to human trafficking. There are different typologies, all right? And so, with human trafficking, you also gotta think about with it, and when you think of human trafficking, always remember Teresa. My name starts with a T, right? The 3 T's. The first T being trial or tragedy of being trafficked. That's that first T. The trial or tragedy of being trafficked. The second T is trauma, the effects of being trafficked. The third T is triumph, overcoming the whole trafficking ordeal, all right? So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of gist of what my training looks like because I train in the state of Ohio and all over, I've trained over the country in the school systems, training the students on how to keep prevention and then how to recognize possibly trafficking, all right? There's not one classroom that I went into where after they left my class, and it usually have a 90-minute course for the students, that before I leave, there's a student that wants to come up or students that want to come up and talk to me, afterwards, or they leave me a note, throw a note at me, and that's saying I'm a victim of human trafficking or I'm a survivor of human trafficking. Remember, you're a victim when you're in it, you're a survivor once you're out. Make sure you're making me look cute and smaller on that picture, yes. So anyway, with it, the students, and then I had one student, I was in North Carolina, I'll never forget, and she came up to me after the training and she says, Teresa, she says, I have a question. And I said, yeah. She gave me her story. She was telling me this elaborate story. And I'm like, was that story about you, who you're talking about? And she said, yeah. And she talked about how she was removed from her mom's custody into her grandma's custody. But she failed to tell the part that her mom trafficked her. Another typology, familial trafficking. Familial. Family members trafficking. Okay? Another family member. So she told me that story and she wailed up because when you think about it, a lot of these kids don't understand what is human trafficking, so they don't even know how to identify, put a label on it, and they don't understand it, okay? When we talk about human trafficking, you'll hear three different words, the verbiage we use. Extracted out the life of human trafficking, so you extract something, remove them out, right? You hear rescued. Rescued, I deal a lot with that terminology when we're overseas and I'm rescuing those victims that are taken from Monrovia, their country over in Africa, Monrovia, or the city, Monrovia, Liberia. They're taken from there and they're brought over to a country called Oman in the Middle East, Arab nation. And a lot right there, I see the labor trafficking, the debt bondage, all right? So they're rescued. That's where that involves with the rescue verbiage. I use a lot more with that. Then you'll hear recovered. When I think of recovered, I think of recovering a dead body. But no, you hear that a lot of times when you hear about these missing youth. This missing youth or teenager was recovered, okay? So they all mean the same, but it's extracted, recovered, or rescued, okay? With regards to human trafficking. But like I said, people don't think that it happens here. It happens here. And so with these students, they don't know how to identify. So when you extract the victim out of human trafficking and stuff, and like that juvenile, that, you know, a lot of them that talk to me, they didn't know what happened to them, you know, or what's happening to them. Because they'll say, after they come through my class, they know whether they're a victim or they're a survivor. If when they're removed from that household in the child, you know, protective custody, the CPS workers or children's services, if that children's services worker didn't pick up on that part, that also with the underlying layer being that they were trafficked, that's 9 times out of 10, your next person that's gonna be going in and out of the justice system, committing crimes. Because mental illness mimics crime, crime mimics mental illness, right? And so a lot of times with the trauma, you self-medicate. So you're gonna do whatever you gotta do to get those drugs, or alcohol, you know, the substance abuse disorders, to deal with that trauma. And so, if they don't get that and remove that out, that kid's gonna remain sick or imprisoned in their mind, still dealing with that trauma, the PTSD. I'm 43 years old right now. I still would deal with the symptoms, the residual effects of being trafficked. There's nights when I wake up and I'm thinking about I'm still there. You know, there's sometimes I'm still beating myself up every once in a while in my brain when I make some mistake. You know, there's sometimes that, you know, I still feel alone or disconnected or don't feel loved. You know, there's sometimes, you know, I have that, but I have to remind myself and also go back to the word as a believer, you know? And so these kids are in a lot of danger, and I train for the State of Ohio Department of with Children's Services. So I have the contract now where I train all the children's services workers, the staff and the supervisors with regards to human trafficking, what they're looking for, because that's one of the biggest problems that the prosecutors in the state of Ohio are facing, is that these CPS workers don't have the right training or enough training. So now dealing with that. And then also I've been requested, and I'm the content expert, because I'm subject matter and content expert, plus lived experience expert with regards to human trafficking, reviewing and making the additions and stuff to the State of Ohio Department, for the State of Ohio Department of Education, our Aaron's Law, and with regards to human trafficking policy in our school systems, all right? So we're getting ready to go into a little bit of my training. I put you in the situation of human trafficking is different. My training is a lot different than I'm not sitting here with a PowerPoint presentation, okay? So I want you to, I don't know if you can see it, but hopefully you can. I want you to pay attention to the person in this chair, and then I'm gonna watch this video, and then I'm gonna ask some questions, okay? So we're ready.
So with the application on, how long does it take once you put the application on the
Um,
ground?
because she doesn't have any gray, about a half an hour.
Uh, and then you just rinse it out, right?
Well, we wash it, but
Uh, and
yeah.
then your trimmer ends, right? She doesn't want it cut
Just trim.
short, just trim. No.
Look on her wrist.
Yeah, it is one part of the 5B and then one part of the 5R with 40 volume. Yeah, they're both in there.
Okay. So, where's this scene taking place at? A beauty salon, right? Okay. So, in the state of Ohio, back in 2016, when Governor Kasich, during his tenure as the governor, he mandated that all licensed cosmetologists, in order to renew or obtain a cosmetology license in the state of Ohio, you had to have so many continuing education hours on human trafficking awareness. I was one of the people that came through, and you got to have this right now, coming through the hair salons and the hair schools. So, your name, please? Denise. If we're involved with the trafficking, okay, me and you, we're in this game. We got our new recruits. If we got, on this side of the street, we have, within close proximity, we have a hair school, cosmetology school, and we have a hair salon over here. Which one are we gonna go to? We're gonna bring our new recruits into for the transformation. The salon with the already licensed cosmetologist? Okay, so hold on, ready. Me and you are in the game, we're traffickers. We're bringing our new recruits, new recruited victims in, they're gonna go through transformation. We're transforming their hair, okay? And their looks. If we ride past or whatever, we see a cosmetology school, let's say on this side of the street, then down the street we see a hair salon where you have actual cosmetologists that are licensed. Which one you think, we're gonna go to either one of them, but which one would you think we really would choose if we had within close proximity like that? The school, because the students are in there, they're less trained, right? They're not trained, they're not paying attention, and also the school is cheaper, right? So our operation is gonna be less likely to be compromised, okay? So that was an actual real situation where I came through with my new recruits, played the role of the trafficker. And a lot of times in the schools, you gotta sign a waiver document stating that you're going to not sue that school or that student should they mess your hair up. This is a school. The students at that school had already taken the free online course, not my course, free online course in the curriculum, during their curriculum before they came down and was able to actually do people's hair. They failed. You see that? Hair salons and hair schools are located all over the United States, correct? So imagine the other states that don't have this mandate. But these students failed, right? When I came in there, I filled out the form for the young lady. I put her name down on the form, was Andrea. Then I asked the receptionist, who was just a hair school student, I said, hey, you guys allowed to accept tips. Money talks, right? She's like, yeah. I said, whoever can hurry up and get her done, I'm gonna give extra money to. Good tip, and she doesn't talk much, we're in a hurry, gave me an elaborate excuse, fell for it. So when they come to get her, and they introduce herself, she had two cosmetologists in her hair. They came and introduced themselves to us, and then they asked her name, and I said her name is Melissa. Then they went ahead and they took us back, right? The first thing was the first red flag was I filled out her paperwork for her. That was the first red flag. The second red flag they should have noticed is I gave a different name, and then I gave her Andrea on the paper, but Melissa in person, right? That's a second red flag. And the third red flag they missed is I spoke for her. She could have spoke for herself. Got back there. What did you notice with her? Fidgety. What was the signs of the fidgety? What made you think she's fidgety? What was the sign? Scratching her arms. See her legs? Knee shaking, right? So with the knee shaking, you see nervousness, right? But then scratching her arm, well, that's an indicator of possible what? Drug use. What drug use you think? Heroin. That's one of the drugs that's very highly addicted that a trafficker may get their victims addicted to. All right? So you see her scratching her leg, so she may be scratching her arm because of the usage, but also because she's shaking her leg because it could be an adverse side effect to the drug or the nervousness or both, right? Anybody notice anything else? She wasn't saying much. So when I went to get my hair done the other day, I was excited. Was she excited? No. That was a sign right there, wasn't it? They missed it. What else? There's some more you should have seen in there. Yes, ma'am, back there. Tattooed. I put her TM. Why do traffickers, you think, sometimes why do they tattoo or brand their victims? Why? It's ownership. It's a sign of ownership. Let's say once when you get to your final destination or where you're working, there are other traffickers you might be out working on the street. There's other traffickers out there with their girls or their victims, so then guess what? That's mine. Imagine you get out the life of trafficking and you're on your road to recovery and you got to get up every morning out the bathtub or the shower and you got to look at that tattoo with that brand. Delays you in your recovery, don't it? There's a lot of people, tattoo artists that are out here right now that are covering up the tattoos for free for survivors of human trafficking. This is real, guys. Also, you see that drastic change? Getting a drastic change. Why do traffickers sometimes like to go through transformation? Why do they want to disguise your looks? I'm hot, guys, I'm sorry. So you can't find, okay, disguising their looks, right? And then also the better you look, the more money you're gonna make, they're gonna make off those buyers. If I say the word buyer, that means John buyer, interchangeable, all right? So, was there anything else that you guys noticed in there? Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah, I was talking for her in the background. You heard it, calling all the shots. Nobody was paying attention. The only people who knew that I was coming through there was the owner of the salon and the managers. It wasn't a question. He just made a statement that the person in the background was saying how she wants her hair done. She doesn't want it cut too short, all that other stuff. But she was going through a drastic transformation because her hair was being colored too, but not cut really, really short. All right? So, at the end of the day, those students, they failed the test. Me coming through there. And the owner did like this. She said, this is transformation phase going on over here, and you guys aren't even paying attention. You see the two cosmetologists just doing her hair? Not even paying, they're just so excited to do the hair. Not even paying attention. This is a person showing signs I need help. But guess what? They got no help.
The kids and asking them, hey, what's going on? So
Who's
kind
that?
of opening up the communication channels.
Who was that? Who said something? Sharon. Oh, okay. I'm like, what's going on? Okay. I didn't hear. Okay. So, yeah. So if you see somebody do like this, what does that mean? I need help. You see that? If that would have been a real situation, and say I would have went in there, or you guys and you recognize that, I'm going to my car, very discreetly. I'm gonna call the local police department. I'm gonna say, hey, my name is Teresa Merriweather. I'm trained on human trafficking awareness. I'm at this establishment, this address, and this is what I've noticed. Can you guys come and do a wellness check? That may be somebody's loved one, or it is somebody's loved one because they loved. They may be just way far from home, or they're missing, right? That needs help, that you're gonna help save that life. What if you wrong, but what if you right? It's always better to be safe than sorry. And I tell people when they go on vacations and stuff too, like Myrtle Beach and places, don't sit down there with your magazine and your mocktail or cocktail or whatever, sitting there enjoying yourself, and your kid needs to go to the bathroom, and you just let them go on up there to the bathroom. No, you go with them. You get up and we're not living in that time of area no more. You know? Can you go to the next one for me, please, sir? Can you do a percentage? Can you go up a little bit more with the percentage, like with the magnifying? Make it bigger? No? Okay, so look on the left. You see the young girl on the left? It's the same one on the right. 12 years old. See that drastic transformation? So imagine, let's say this kid's gone missing or whatever. Law enforcement's having a hard time locating because the look is totally different. Especially the kid goes and the parent shows them, the last Facebook picture that they post, or the last one that they got from the most recent from the school picture. Looks nothing like they did before they left home. Complete transformation. I know my trafficker, he got my hair done at the hair school. Next slide. Another transformation. She's 13, almost 14 years old, menstruation age. Left and right. And then she has on her right here, she has her tattoos. Her belly looks a little full. What could possibly be wrong? She could be pregnant. Who would she probably be pregnant by? It'd be more likely to be by a buyer on the Johns. Imagine that more trauma. And I train like with the WIC programs and stuff, and telling them, public health agencies, like, you want to be careful because you look at familial trafficking, okay? Parents traffic their kids for drugs and money. Oh, she's pregnant? Well, do you know who the child's father? No. She just fasts, or this is what she does. Sleeps with different men, runs away all the time? No. That parent or parents may bring in those buyers in, and your child got pregnant. And then they may let that baby be born for compliance, right? Keep you in compliance, or also there's gonna be extra benefits in the household, extra food stamps. Think about it. Extra, if they working a little bit, more money on that income tax check. Or think about some states where they could make you have an abortion. You might have wanted your baby no matter the circumstances of how it was conceived. That's more complex trauma. When you're working with survivors of human trafficking, it's like peeling back an onion. You gotta be treated for the mental illness, right? If you don't go into the life affected by some form of mental illness, you're gonna come out of the life of trafficking affected by some form of mental illness. It could be anxiety, depression. It could be the bipolar type 1, type 2, more severe mental disorders, the schizoaffective, schizophrenias. Because those are vulnerable populations, right? But you're gonna go in, when you come out to life, if you're not affected by some form, you're gonna come out affected by some form of mental illness. You gotta be treated also if your trafficker got you addicted to the drugs. You gotta be treated for that. Then you gotta be treated for the trauma itself. What happened to you? We gotta talk about it. Then another thing, you gotta be taught, what does a healthy versus unhealthy relationship look like? For me, I like men. So I had to be taught what a man of God will and will not do. What does a man of God look like? Act like? When the test is given, how is he gonna pass that test? So it's like peeling back an onion, and it's real. And I work with survivors all the time, my peers. And I don't have children of my own. And I went through 9 years of healing, and I'm not completely healed. And I tell people, you can't put no time frame on no healing. Healing is every day until I leave this side of life. And after 9 years, I met someone that's in my life right now. Do I test him? I sure do. I give him a run for his money. 3 years, but I think he's gonna ask me that question, I'm gonna say yes. Well, he don't know that. But yeah, so it's a very hard and tough recovery. Working with my peers, a lot of them, are stagnant, meaning where that trauma occurs, stagnant. You can grow physically, but not mentally, okay? And so for me, it's sometimes hard and difficult, but I can get through the difficult situations because I have the tools, And so just imagine kids that are trafficked. I'm an adult survivor. Imagine the child survivors. It's a lot harder. I have one young lady, her name's Amari. She's from my county, Lorain County, and her mom and her siblings, they moved away back a couple years ago to Florida. So they were in Florida, and Amari, she was at the age when she moved. She's now 17. When they moved, she was 15 years old. She became friends with a 14-year-old. Amari came up missing. On social media, all the things showing she was missing, all that stuff. The family reached out to me, asked if I can get a little bit more help down in Florida and stuff for it. And so when Amari came back home, she wasn't the same. She was trafficked. Her 14-year-old friend had a 27-year-old boyfriend. The 27-year-old boyfriend was able to date the 14-year-old because he paid her mom, the 14-year-old's mom, bills and gave her money, paid her bills and gave her money. She was in love with her 27-year-old boyfriend. And Amari liked to smoke weed, the marijuana. But in the life of trafficking, she was forced to smoke that weed out of a bong that was laced with meth. So when she got home, she was able to get away from those goons, the 27-year-old and his other goons with the other traffickers. She didn't come back the same. She had to be put on a psychiatric unit because she had to be treated for the trauma from being trafficked. She had to be treated for the drug addiction. And she had to be treated for 2 gynecological diseases, STDs that she caught. She wakes up every day not knowing how many men she slept with. Like me, I don't know how many I serviced. Imagine as a kid. And so with Amari, is very difficult even with her. Understanding why. Why did this happen to me? And still trying to work through the trauma. You know, you would think she's still just like an outraging, mean kid. No, you got to know her story. And like people don't understand that we all have a story, all of us. You know, but just so happen mine's human trafficking like Amari's. You know, it's one that's very hard to get through. You know, people don't understand that. How did you allow that to happen? Don't ask me how. Only thing I need you to do is I want to ask you, how can you help me to get through it? How can you help me to get through this? You know? And so, as I say, people don't think it happens here. Victims are right here in your plain sight. You just got to be able to pick up on them. So, not everybody makes it out the life of trafficking alive. Not everybody makes it out the life of trafficking alive. One of the ways out we look at is we hope that you're rescued, extracted, or recovered, right? That's what we hope for out the life of trafficking. Another way out the life of trafficking would be by suicide. Why would you commit suicide in a life of trafficking? Shame, can't take anymore, hopeless, helpless, right? So suicide is another way out of the life of trafficking. Another way is prison. I think of some of the women that are sitting in prison right now wrongfully convicted because they didn't pick up in that courtroom, or that criminal defense attorney didn't pick up that person did not commit that crime because they wanted to. They had to. They were forced to. It was in the life of trafficking under duress. Imagine that. So prison. Then another way out is overdose. Your trafficker may not know they got a bad batch of heroin. It may be laced with fentanyl. And guess what happens? You overdose. Another way out of trafficking is you may be killed. Who do you think you might be killed by? A buyer. I know over there in Cleveland, where I'm from, Cuyahoga County in Ohio, there was this man named Anthony Sewell. He died in prison during COVID. And he killed said prostitutes and buried them in shallow graves around his house. Not every buyer like said prostitutes. So you may be killed in a life of trafficking by the buyer or John, or by your trafficker. What's your name? Jasmine, can I use you for example? I'm tired of you, Jasmine. Can I have a pen? I'm tired of you, Jasmine. You're not making me that much money no more. So what do? I may kill her. Or I got my new recruits. I'm trying to show them, you see what happens? I don't have to kill that person with a blunt force object, with a gun, or hit him with a blunt force object. No. Give me your arm, Jasmine. She's used to me giving her 5 cc's of heroin. This is 10. Boom, force that overdose. So that's one thing with training the police, the first responding officer when they come to that scene. How you know that no matter what, that's not just a druggie down there, fatal drug over. That's that person has purpose. But how do you know that that's not a victim of human trafficking that died of a fatal overdose as a result of a trafficker forcing it? That's a good question, huh? So this is real. Can you go to my next slide, sir? Can anybody tell me what that scene looks like? A funeral. You see the Caucasian hand over top of that, the black American hand over the top of the Caucasian hand, huh? Whose black hand do you think that is? Whose black hand do you think that is? Mine. Over a woman named Courtney Kinkoff. Courtney Kinkoff's body was found in an abandoned apartment building 3 years ago in Cleveland, Ohio. Courtney didn't make out the life of trafficking alive. Courtney was trafficked in Michigan, California, and Ohio. She didn't make out the life of trafficking alive. It's real. Her parents took off that, if you notice, there's a necklace at the top. It says stronger than a storm, the pendant. They took it off, and I just had to put the necklace back on. I ordered a new one because of my hair. I got caught when I got the shower and it broke. It says stronger than a storm. They took it off. I didn't know before they closed that casket and put it on me. Her life wasn't in vain. It's a storm out here trying to teach these kids about the dangers of online gaming and social media, running away from home and all this other stuff, about prevention with being trafficked. It's a storm trying to rescue or extract or recover victims from human trafficking. It's a storm out here trying to figure out who is maybe possibly at risk for becoming the next trafficker. People think it doesn't happen, but it happens right here. I'm gonna use this one more example right here. So I did have it. Yep, I did. So, I can't remember her name again. Right here? Jasmine. You a prostitute. You out there selling yourself, right? You out there selling yourself, getting your money, right? Getting your drugs, money for your drugs and stuff. Then you meet me. And I'm like, Jasmine, I got you. I'm gonna make sure, I take care of you. I'm gonna keep you clothed. You know I got your fix. I'm gonna take good care of you. Next thing is housing you, clothing you, feeding you, everything, and giving you your drugs. All right? You take the bait on me. Don't even know I'm a trafficker. Think about how that vulnerability of that said prostitute went from selling herself to now working for me. I'm a trafficker. Now I'm life trafficking. Imagine that. Drug trafficking and human trafficking run hand in hand. Drug trafficking and human trafficking run hand in hand. You have the supply as a drug trafficker. Now you get into human trafficking. Why? So, this is $50 before you were trafficked. I'm a drug dealer. This is 5 cc's of heroin. It costs $50. You give me the $50. Here go to 5 cc's of heroin, Jasmine. What's gonna happen with that heroin? What you gonna do with it? What happens to it?
Sell it?
You're gonna use it, right? You bought it from me because you're on drugs, right? So once you, thank you, I need this back. Once you use it, there's no more profit. But a trafficking victim can be reused, reused, and reused. This is real. A lot of times that's what your life is like. They keep you high and you working. And guess what, Jasmine? You're gonna get out there and you're gonna service them buyers. Because if you don't, you got kids, Jasmine?
I don't.
Okay,
I have nieces and nephews.
all right. You love yourself?
Yes.
I don't love you like that. So guess what? I may kill you through threats of violence to kill you or harm you. You probably seen me harm other victims, right? In the same ring with you, that I own y'all, right? So if you don't do what I tell you, if you tell you to do, that's what's gonna happen to you. Did I make a threat toward your life? That behavioral style trafficker, that's what we call that guerrilla trafficker. That's a guerrilla. Now, what's your name? Oh, I forgot, you just like me. Teresa, can I use you? Thank you, Jasmine. So, Teresa, we go to University of Michigan, right? We go there. No, we're not sorority sisters. We could be though. So, you broke, college student broke, like me. But guess what? I'm gonna hook you up. I'm gonna take care of us. I'm gonna set you up with these dates, and I'm gonna get this money. I'm gonna take care of you. We gonna make it. Did I threaten you?
No, you didn't threaten me.
That's the charismatic trafficker behavior style. And it could be, I could be her. That could be her mom. It could be her auntie. It could be your aunt. It could be your uncle. Something like that. They didn't threaten you, but you're someone you love and they groomed you. And guess what? They're trafficking you, and you don't even realize it. That's
Because
a
I trust
charismatic
you.
trafficker. I trust you. Yeah. That's a charismatic trafficker. Charismatic trafficker. In the other session, I heard someone talk about a movie or something. The movie that you might want to look at, Trafficked, Trafficked, Trafficked. Put in parentheses, 2017 Ashley Judd. That depicts actual events with regards to human trafficking. So you want to look at that. Also, the movie Sold can give you depictions of from a global perspective with regards to human trafficking. Anybody have questions for me? Anybody have questions? Because I'm going to finish now. Yes.
Several victims and experts and survivors, and the one thing I always wonder is, you get out and now you give back, but aren't you still afraid that someone will come after you?
With my work?
Yeah.
So think about when you Google me, you see Teresa Merriweather, human trafficking, let's say Ohio. You see survivor, human trafficking survivor now. I'm also, I was held at gunpoint, carjacked 2 years ago. So they thought automatically I was in a black on black Dodge Durango, Michigan plates too. And I went to the gas station. So the first thing to get gas before I was headed to a safe house in another part of the state of Ohio. And they thought that it was regards to my human trafficking. No, it was just two heartless felons, name of the gangs, that came to carjack me. But I'm not scared because I'm prepared for this. Does that make sense? In a little bit, you see my background: bachelor's sociology, minor criminology. So sociology, we look at people in groups and the study of their behaviors, right? Master's in administration of justice and security. Human trafficking is one of the most heinous crimes there is, right? Then security, I know how to keep myself safe and others safe as I'm rescuing, right? Then the crime scene technician, I can help build a case for the prosecutor to get the prosecution, right? Advocating for those victims or victim, and get the prosecution so they can get them convicted and get them sent away. Or on the other side for the criminal defense attorney that we just working on the case with one of the attorneys that came through my internship and now is an attorney in Ohio and representing a victim. Help build the case and it's for the criminal defense. This isn't a criminal. This is a person, this is a victim of human trafficking. Am I scared? No. Because when I look back over my life, remember, I was educated before I was trafficked. So people say it can't happen to you. Yeah, thought it couldn't happen to me either, huh? And I'll talk about in my guest speaking my vulnerabilities, how I ended up there, all right? But I'm not scared, and I'm a believer. So for Christ I live and for Christ I'll die. All I'm doing is I wake up every day on purpose. I was free from something for something. My steps are ordered, you know? So I'm not scared. There's no fear. Purpose over fear. So, no, I'm not scared. That answers your question. Yes. Anybody else have questions for me? Yes, sir.
Not very good. She keeps running over to me with the microphone. And this doesn't directly have to do with human trafficking, more of child pornography. Several years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, and you might remember this, Elizabeth Smart, if you remember who she was.
Yeah, she's hostage.
Yeah, yeah. She was on, I think it was Good Morning America, and she had a map of the United States, and she had a red dot wherever there had been a child pornography hit on their site, a child pornography site hit. And down the middle of Michigan, from that side east, was one solid red mass, like somebody had just taken a red paintbrush and painted down eastern Michigan. That's how many child pornography site hits had been at that time. I just thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. And something too, I want to say, you know how you hear people talk about Target and Walmart, these different places, traffickers? Do you know what a trafficker looks like? Nobody? So if I don't know what a trafficker looks like, a trafficker can be who? So where are traffickers located? They're everywhere. So you're thinking of just places like, no, they're everywhere. You know, so people have they don't have a perspective on human trafficking and what it really, really is and what it looks like. And that's why I'm here to educate, you know. And something that I get sick of hearing is people and dealing with people who claim and they want to, you know, human trafficking is a big money market right now, big money on providing the education and services for victims of human trafficking, but the ones who don't know what they're doing or they're talking about, they're taking advantage of it. But when they hear Teresa Merriweather, sometimes I walk in places, they know me, but I don't know them. But I can tell as soon as they start talking, they know me. And I go and sit down, and then afterwards, when it's time for questions, let me ask you some questions. I'll take you to class. Oh, this is a fraud right here. Who paying you? Because you're doing a disservice to the victims, because I was one of them, by giving out wrong information and you using this for your own gain. Don't re-exploit us. You know, and I tell people, don't be talking, and I'm gonna tell you guys right now, do not try to take my verbiage, okay, my line. It's $10 for every time he uses it, and I will find out if he uses it. I say, don't treat me like Lonnie Lunch Meat. I got the meat, but you don't have the bread. The money, I can't come in. That's what I tell them. You're not gonna treat me like Lonnie Lunch Meat. I've been exploited before. Be careful, when I teach my peers, be careful not to get practiced on what you practice. You know? So with this fight I'm in, it's a lot of layers to it, but I'm equipped for it. I don't have to get ready because I stay ready. I know what I'm looking for, you know? And every day, like I say, I get up on purpose. I wasn't supposed to come here today. Wasn't feeling good, had a cold for last week. But I'm here because there's a message for me to deliver in just a minute out there.
Praise the Lord.
All right? So thank you guys for coming in here, and I provide the training. This is just a glimpse of my training. I do the online, I'm in schools and everything. I gave you just a glimpse of what my training looks like. Training program, there's lots more.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Right here. Can
Yeah.
I just make a comment? And really kind of a question for you too. I work with an organization that we service women in Flint who are at risk or may have been trafficked in the game right now, but don't necessarily call it that. We see a lot of older ladies. We don't see a lot of young, we do see some young, mostly on the street, but that come to our center, it's older. They've been in this for many years, and it is generally, they do not consider themselves being trafficked or a victim because it's just been their life. The drugs, the addiction, and the trafficking go hand in hand. They refer to going on a date. So I just wonder if that kind of matches your experience.
With my lived experience?
Either that or what you're working with now, because that's what we see
yeah.
mostly in the heart of Flint.
Yeah.
In our ministry.
Yes, so you see that in mostly almost all cases.
Okay.
You know, it is like, you know, I'm out here, he loved me, we working, we making this money together. Or you hear, he makes me do it. You know what I mean? If I don't have a choice. How am I gonna live? You gonna help me? And I tell people, if you don't have the resources to help a victim of human trafficking, leave them right where they're at. Because they're going from the known, they know that life, to the unknown, and they in trouble. Because if you mess up and with them, and you don't know what you're doing, then they go back out in a life, their life may be even more at risk. That trafficker going back may sell them to a different trafficker. They used to this one, they know this one's movement, but guess what? They may not make it out alive.
Yeah, and I think that's what we see too, is it's not so much they're being caged or locked or whatever, it's a security, living there, and then they leave that one and end up with a new boyfriend.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yep.
I just.
Thank you. So I'm done, and I'll see you guys over on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we give her a round of applause? Thank you so much, Dr. Merriweather, for your wonderful presentation. And as she said, at 2 p.m., she will be giving her keynote back in the gymnasium. So feel free to make your way there. Thank you.